Welcome everyone to the CASLT little breakout session on our mentorship program, Connecting Mentorship to Identity, Community, and Confidence. All right, so it's still very much in its infancy, but the CASLT Mentorship Program was launched last year, and we also did a kind of a pilot, and the feedback was extremely positive. So we definitely felt like we were onto something and that there's definitely a need for this. So it's an exciting new project for novice and experienced teachers in L2. It's flexible, it's online, and it's self-directed. Any L2 teacher can contribute to and benefit from the program. So it's really open to whoever wants to participate in it. The program aims to help teachers connect and learn from each other. It also aims to help retain L2 teachers, which we know is a struggle. And it aims to help CASLT support L2 teachers. And I think we've seen from some of the feedback we got last year that it really is doing that so far. Can you hear all that construction going on? Jeez, that's ridiculous. Nope. Anyways, let's continue. So the program also aims to help mentees survive and thrive. So not just survive, but also thrive in new L2 teaching assignments. Mentors enhance leadership, teaching, and coaching skills. So there is two different roles. However, we see it more as much sharing will be going on. So et voila, it is online, it is self-selected, it's self-managed, currently offered to all L2 teachers working in Canadian schools. And it begins anytime and it ends in June. So it's really up to the participants how they want to structure that. Yeah, I'll put this in the chat, but if you wanted to access the site to watch a video and to get more information in on the program, I'll add this to the chat in a moment. The video is very well done, and also the information is very, very user-friendly. The webpage is really well done, so it wouldn't take much of your time to get more information if you're looking for it. So on that, we're going to move to the panel discussion. So I'm going to ask perhaps our participants on the panel to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Carol. So my name is Yuliya Desyatova. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto, Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, OISE. I've also been an ESL teacher in Canada for the last 15 years, and I've worked with mostly adult newcomers to Canada in a LINK program. I have also taught teacher candidates in a CASLT program in Toronto. In my doctoral research, I have connected with over 300 teachers and administrators across Canada to hear about their experiences in the recent mandatory implementation of a new assessment policy called Portfolio-Based Language Assessment, PBLA. And this particular assessment policy implementation had a significant component that could be viewed as a mentorship initiative, not a very successful one. And thank you for having me here.
Well, thank you for joining us. Okay, let's go to Mimi.
Hello, bonjour tout le monde. So I'm coming at you from the University of Ottawa. It's a bilingual campus, but we are in a French as a minority language context. I work in the Bachelor of Education program there, and I prepare future FSL, French as a Second Language teachers, who are going to teach in our K-12 schools in Ontario. I'm also working right now for CASLT. We're doing a project that's been funded by CASLT on the FSL consortium, collaborating with researchers from University of New Brunswick and researchers from British Columbia. And we're specifically looking at issues of retention and recruitment in the profession. As we all know, there's a huge shortage of FSL teachers, and mentorship is one of the things that has come up as a solution or a point of discussion that's been provided by our participants, which include faculties of education, school boards, and new teachers. Actually, some of my colleagues are here, so just a quick shout out to Paula and Amanda. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Monica.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour. My name is Monica Tang. I'm a faculty associate at Simon Fraser University in BC, and my role is to support. I work both in pre-service with pre-service teachers and in-service teachers, and my doctoral research is in identity construction of bilingual teachers. So I worked with teachers and their sense of legitimacy as a second language teacher, and now starting to be interested in how we can help students develop a more positive sense of themselves, their linguistic identity. So very happy to be here. Looking forward to a good discussion.
Great, thank you so much. Philippa.
Who's going to actively unmute? Okay, hi everyone. My name is Philippa, and I just started a position as a prof at the Beals program, so English second language teachers at the Université de Sherbrooke in Quebec. And I finished my doctoral research in April, presented and defended, and it looked really about future English second language teachers and the really heavy attrition rates. So how we can support them and ensure that they build resilience so they stay in the field a lot longer than they actually are. And mentorship, of course, is a large part of that.
All right, thank you so much. And I'm Carole. I'll just be moderating the discussion. So we saw that we have participants from a variety of contexts and differing perspectives. So I'd like to get the conversation started. Someone was asking, do you need to be a member of CASLT? Yes. And retired teachers also can participate. So I know I was sending messages to some of my former colleagues and saying, hey, you still have a contribution that you can make here, please. So let's get some questions or comments in the chat, and we'll get the conversation going. Are there school districts that have attempted to put together a mentorship program? What were the benefits? What went really well? What were some of the challenges?
Can I just talk? Is that okay, Carole?
Oh, sure, I guess.
Okay. I just I find it interesting because I know Philippa's work, her doctoral work, and what we're seeing in the FSL project with respect to the feeling of isolation among some FSL teachers. Philippa also saw with her ESL teachers, like the CART teacher and the just feeling like they're the only one in the school and they have no department, no one to talk to. We're seeing some of that in our FSL project as well. So the mentorship, having this virtual mentorship available through CASLT, and I see it's just for members. Yes, okay. So we need to facilitate memberships for our new teachers, right? That's one of the bigger pieces that we have to make sure. And then I'm going to send this information to a few people I know that might be useful to them, because I think that feeling of isolation is real, or it certainly seems
Definitely
real from the data we're collecting. And like I said, I have read Philippa's dissertation, and it really was real for them too.
For sure.
It was really real. Really real. Yes. Anyway, thanks for letting me talk.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself in a moment because they've started up the construction again on the other side. But I invite more comments or questions in the chat, and maybe someone from the panel can just, share a little bit more on their perspectives, and while I'm muted.
I see that Jess has something that she wants to ask. So I'm going to invite Jess to share.
So it's not so much asking, but just kind of mentioning something we are running here in Saskatchewan. I'm from the Saskatchewan Association of Teachers of French. And we created a mentorship program last year because in Saskatchewan, it's not a huge language push. So we were able to get like 15, 20 people kind of together from all over the province to kind of talk and share resources about the things that they're doing within their schools. Because like personally, I'm the only language teacher in my school. There's 5 of us in our division. So it was nice to be able to get through with other people in the province and just kind of share and go with it.
I think that's great, Jess. Thanks for sharing. When schools make time for teachers to come together and practice mentorship, it can be a really fruitful endeavor. And just to add to what, Meredith is saying in the chat here about mandatory mentorship programs, and sometimes they can be too much. Yeah, absolutely. I think mentorship programs, people who put in place mentorship programs, the leaders in the schools, really need to make room for teachers to be able to conduct their mentorship in a way that makes sense to them. So maybe they need mentorship to build their confidence in French. Maybe they need mentorship to build their pedagogical knowledge. Maybe they need mentorship to just understand the institutional and local context and who the learners are. So when we give teachers that autonomy to develop their own mentorship, they feel a lot better and they don't feel overworked and run down like what might have happened with the teachers in your school, Meredith. And also it's important for leaders, I think, to rethink, like, how are we measuring the success of mentorship programs? So how do we know that they're working? Well, teachers not being run down is one way. And also, seeing teachers innovate and practice new things, take risks in their classroom for their programs is also another way that mentorship programs are supposed to help them. So people who are in positions of power, you can think, okay, I'm not going to measure the mentorship by asking my teachers to write a report about what they learned. I'm going to measure the mentorship by asking my teachers, how do they feel? Do they feel good about coming to work every day? Do they feel happy about being here? If the answer is no, then maybe there needs to be more work in terms of mentorship to support them, because mentorship can provide lots of different things. I'm going to stop here and let my colleagues pick it up.
Well, I'm noticing definitely there's a theme that self-directed mentorship is so important rather than having it being imposed. There's got to be like a happy medium, I guess, a balance in there. Let's see some of the other comments. Anyone else want to jump in with something? Feel free while I read this and get caught up a little bit.
Hi, I'm just also going to add, oh, sorry, Yuliya. I wanted to add something that kind of came up in the other session that was sort of a value. And then in between sessions, I was just sharing about how in the program in which I teach in the graduate program, we have mentors in the program, and the way that we interpret the role of the mentor, the metaphor we use is that the mentor is a mirror, not the teacher. And teacher, even in that sense, you can interpret what that role is, but we found that it's been very useful to have mentors position themselves not as the ones who know, but the ones who will just kind of repeat to you what you've said, and so that the mentee is in control of that relationship. And so the mentor's job is not necessarily to bring them into a certain direction or align them with a certain philosophy, but rather to amplify what that mentee's, what their needs, what their values are. So the mentor's role is simply to allow that teacher to uncover that. So that's a very different positioning as opposed to the typical relationship where I know what you need, I'm going to tell you, whether it's here's a resource or here I will correct your French, which is, to my understanding, even like really worse. So there's many ways in which we interpret what a mentor is. And oftentimes I think in these mentorship programs, we don't really start with that conversation. So that's a very important starting point.
Right, very good. I really appreciate how you mentioned the idea of correcting the mentee's language. And again, that has to be something that is initiated by the mentee themselves. And sometimes they do want to practice with you and get a little bit better, but or more comfortable, but it's really not up to someone to start doing that. I think Yuliya had something she wanted to add there.
Yes, on your last point, Carole, yes, I really wanted to be corrected when I first came to Canada. But again, there has to be a balance, right? You don't want to totally destroy people's confidence in their language skills, but when they need help and if they explicitly ask for it, that could be very helpful. And to add to the previous points about imposition, and I'd be very careful about mandatory programs, because there is so much that could go wrong. There's so many opportunities for too much pressure And that's not what the mentorship program needs to, it aims to ease the pressure on the new teachers, right? And to support them from the bottom rather to impose something from above. So as in previous discussion, we had this idea of power imbalance that could be detrimental to mentorship relationship, where both sides need to benefit from in order for them to be sustainable relationships. And again, I'll return just one more point to something that was said in the previous discussion. In successful initiatives, mentees report that what they valued most were the relational aspect rather than purely technical knowledge transmission. They need that human support, and the rest can be added when there's that foundation. Thank you.
We keep coming back to the idea of the relationship, right, between the mentor and the mentee. So important. And I'd just like to highlight Paula's comment here. She says, our participants are asking for different kinds of mentorship. So the one size fits all program does not work for them necessarily, and where to find resources, how to read the curriculum. That should be a course all in itself, I think. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, so she said different kinds of mentoring, how to read the curriculum, where to find resources, and then language mentoring based on their own need, not a preconceived idea. Mentorship includes how to evaluate formatively and summatively, for sure, because once you get into the classroom, that's different than what you thought it looked like when you were still in your university years. And then if you're starting to teach French for the first time, even if you're a very experienced teacher, you might have some questions. And we need to make a space where people can ask those questions and not feel like, I should know this already. An evaluation that propels students' learning, for sure. I also just wanted to comment about that importance of the relationship. CASLT has kind of built into the mentorship program ways to ensure that the teachers who are playing the role of mentors have experience in that area. I'm not saying we're vetting people, but we're, trying to make sure that the right people get paired up with the right people. So I think that could be of comfort to some people who are maybe trying to work in this. We want them to have a positive experience, and then maybe the mentee will become a mentor later on, for sure. And mentorship cannot be punitive. You have to do it or your contract won't be renewed, for sure. That won't be a positive experience for anybody, and no good's going to come of that, right? So very, very important points. So Meredith is making another one about how to give feedback so so it helps them reflect on their learning. Yeah, it has to be a pleasure and collaborative learning experience for both, necessarily for both. I absolutely 100% believe that a mentor would be learning at the same time. Is there anything else that we want to add to the conversation? We still have a bit of time.
Can I address something?
Of course, please.
Yay. I just wanted to go back to what Monica was saying about the mentor as a mirror. I really love that idea. And it's something I've been thinking about quite a lot in my own interactions and mentoring future ESL teachers. And I hadn't thought of it as a mirror. I thought of it more as a coach or as a therapist. Having done lots of therapy, therapists will turn that on you and say, they won't tell you how to act or what to do, but they will create spaces where you start to question. So I think maybe one thing that we need to do is really consider who is a mentor and who can be a mentor, and what does a mentor do with the mentee. So that whole role. A lot of the teacher mentors I work with, and they're lovely people, out of the goodness of their heart, feel that their job is to show a new teacher how to do it right. So they spend their time, giving a lot of prescriptive advice. And this is, makes a lot of sense when you're the person giving the advice. But what happens on the receiving end, unfortunately, and they don't see this part, is a lot of resentment from the person getting the advice. So in order for real change to happen, the teacher or the mentor needs to sit back and really listen first. And hear what the person who's learning brings to the table, and what is it that they need, what is it that they want, and just sort of help them find those spaces. When my student teachers are in the classroom, I always say, ask, don't tell. So maybe that's a quick little trick that we can use and with our future future teachers and our mentors, we can say, rather than telling a student teacher what to do, ask them how they might respond and themselves if they were the students, or ask them why the students in the classroom were reacting in the way they were, you know, propel them that way.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add to that, Philippa. That's great. Like the idea that relationships is really important. I think also when we're doing mentorship programs, if you want a program to be successful, it's important to view the mentorship as a community of practice. And so when you have a community, what are the expectations in the community? What are the norms in the community? So all these things need to be discussed. I think just putting out their mentorship program is not enough. There needs to be this pre-discussion. So what is the role of the mentor? What is the role of the mentee? How are they going to build a relationship together? Who can be a mentor? Is it a one-way relationship where knowledge is being transmitted from one person to another, or is it more equal? Is it more lateral? Is mentorship a one-on-one activity, or can it be a group of people together, or one group with several people? So all these things are really important because we don't talk about them, and then we have these assumptions, and when our expectations aren't met, we're disappointed, we're resentful, we're overwhelmed.
Okay, thank you. We're going to come back to Philippa. She's got something else she wants to touch on, but I know Monica's been waiting to make a comment. So
that's okay. I just to add to that, what was I going to say? I was going to say that if we're talking ultimately about retention of FSL teachers or ESL teachers, whatnot, what we learn that helps teachers stay in the profession for longer is to have a sense of self-satisfaction. Philippa, you talk about self-efficacy, especially when you teach in a second language, but also the idea that I am my own problem solver. I am capable. My values drive my decision making. That kind of critical reflection that I talk a lot about in my graduate studies is the starting point for a long career. If we're always looking to someone else to find a solution or looking for a resource to fix what's not happening in our classrooms, then we run out of fixes and we run out of people to lean on, and we don't feel like we are assuming the full identity of a teacher. We're still kind of leaning, and we're still adopting a bit of a sense of, I'm a student, I need a teacher to tell me what to do. So I feel like that model of mentorship is a way of saying, you have in you the inner voice to give you the strength to go find the resources, etc. later, but the mentor is there to sustain that part of that teacher, so that they can feel empowered themselves. So if the model of having a mentor that has more expertise is I think a very dangerous one. In fact, when we do our hiring for mentors in that program, we look for disposition and not an expertise. So disposition to say, I have my way of doing things. It may or may not work for you, but I'm here to sort of help you discover what your sense of values are. And my role is not to impose mine upon you. So I really believe that that's sort of a long-term solution to our retention issue. And in second languages, the retention issue is hard because we're struggling to find our confidence as that second language user or additional language user. So if we need to lean on a native speaker, so to speak, or someone for whom French is a dominant language, then we never assume ourselves the confidence that we need. So to me, that's starting point.
Very good, thanks. I'm just reading in the comments here from Monique. She says the imposter syndrome, allowing people to find their own inner voice is important, definitely. Meredith says, I feel new teachers want to feel like they belong, just like a student. If you don't feel this, you grow resentful of learning in your life or having negative emotions towards learning, thus killing the passion of being a lifelong learner, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, so Mimi, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to pick up on what Monica was saying in relation to what Monique put in the chat. Like, absolutely, teachers, just like students, when we want them to be engaged in the classroom, they need to find their inner voice. And I think for language teachers for a long time, there's been a kind of perpetual undermining of their sense of professionalism. So if we can have mentorship programs that build up their sense of professionalism, and that means, what does that mean? They feel competent in their practice. They feel competent as French or English language speakers. They feel, encouraged enough take risks, to try new things in their schools, in their classrooms, to develop new programs in their schools. That's the kind of mentorship program that we want for our students. And our teachers, I guess. And I think the emotional part of that is really important. So I wanted to touch on the idea of like, what is the goal of the mentorship program? You know, is it just to transfer information, or is it also to create emotional bonds, to create a feeling of belonging? Like we've talked about a little bit of these things. So maybe we need to expand our idea in our schools of what mentorship is really for.
Okay, thank you for that. Meredith says, hang on here, I lost it now. She says, competent does not mean perfect either. Very true, where everybody's on their own cheminement, their own trajectory. Anyone else have something they want to add? Philippa.
Yeah, that's just beautiful, because I think there's a couple of things I wanted to address. Absolutely, competent doesn't mean perfect. I'm still not perfect. I'm still trying to figure it out. I've been doing this for 25+ years, and I'm still trying to figure out how to be a good teacher. So yeah, I wanted to say, I think rather than expecting we evaluate our student teachers and expect them to attain this sort of goal. If you read in Quebec, we have these evaluation and these competencies, which I've always had a real trouble with, because I think they can be reduced to exactly what Monica was saying, that we should be able to graduate our student teachers understanding that they're not perfect, but also having the ability to critically reflect on their own practice, and be confident that they can do that, and also confident that they can problem solve and draw on resources. And what I wanted to talk about a little bit was lateral mentorship, because sometimes new teachers or teachers who are struggling are scared to reach out for help. And what I witnessed with my student teachers is that they organically turn to each other. In the context of my research, they were asked to share stories about their experiences, and they came out of it feeling that it was really beneficial. So I think that there's a real place for mentorship, but also for professional learning communities. So a place where new teachers can kind of gather and share together, that emotional unburdening that Mimi was talking about, that place to sort of let it all hang out and say, wow, today really sucked. And now how are we going to make it better? Yeah, I had a crappy day too, but maybe what can we do to help ourselves feel better, or what are some of the resources we can draw on?
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's good. That's excellent. Everyone has a bad day once in a while, and you just learn from it and move on. Anything else anyone wants to add? I'm not seeing too much more in the chat. But from our panelists, Monica?
I had a really, when we first met up and discussed about this panel, we kind of had a few questions to get us going. And I wanted to come back to one of them, which are having to do with supports that leadership can offer. And I'm not an administrator, but I find that that's a really important conversation, because the people in the room here, from what you've indicated, are leaders, are administrators, are in positions of power to help create these containers, so to speak, to help foster these mentorship relationships and these communities of practice. So I wanted to throw out this question to the people in the room as well as the panelists, to say, like, well, what are ways that we can talk, what would we like to say to our leaders, and what do they not know about the kinds of support that is needed amongst our teachers?
Mm-hmm. I love that, Monica. That's a great question. I just put it in the chat here in response to people's comments. So I think one thing that leaders can think about is the space and the time that they give to mentorship. So is the mentorship being officially supported by the school, by the leadership? Are we giving teachers time to meet during school? What we found in our study with the FSL Consortium is that the teachers often end up finding mentorship in ad hoc ways, unofficial mentorship from friends and family members who aren't even necessarily language teachers or in the same area as them. So this is like an added emotional expenditure that they must make to support themselves in the program. So how can we embed that in schools? And then in terms of leadership, then thinking about what we discussed earlier, what do the results of a successful mentorship program look like? What are the deliverables that we're asking them to demonstrate? Do we really need those? Are there other ways we can check if mentorship programs are working for them?
I'm just noticing a couple of things in the chat that I want to comment on. One is I reposted the website, the link, so you can just click on that if you want to go and check out the website. It's very, very user friendly. I encourage you to check that out. Also, Jim Murphy is saying, it's very insightful as I ponder on ways to mentor more seasoned teachers to help them modernize their language teaching approaches. So in addition to everything else, we also had the added layer of adding technology to this, which we, we're already using, but so much more now. And I don't know if that's ever going to go away. And one other thing is that Meredith wanted to add something. So Meredith, this is your chance.
Thanks, Carole. I just actually typed it.
Oh.
It's okay. I found, I taught abroad for 10 years teaching English as a second language. And then when I went back to the profession and got my teaching degree at 40, I was so worried about everything, and that here I was at 40 and everybody's going to think just because of my age I'm going to know everything and whatever. And then, about 3 or 4 years in, I decided I'm never going to be a master teacher. So why don't I just make them master learners? And then just by that one little shift in my head, I took all this pressure off myself, and I don't worry about it now. I just want them to be the master learners. And I'm kind of like the little Sherpa along the way guiding them. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, Danielle was asking about the link. I hope you saw it. I just added it again. Anything else from anyone? I don't want to drag this out longer than it has to, but I want to make sure everyone has a chance to share or ask questions. If there are any more questions, you can add them in the chat. We'll come back to them. But I thought maybe with our panelists, perhaps you can start just kind of giving us your final thoughts, tips, words, advice, wisdom.
I think what we're seeing today is a fundamental shift in the understanding of power structures in a mentor relationship. And if we start to dismantle those, we can really see how the relationship between mentor and mentee can be mutually beneficial if we sort of understand that each person has something to learn from the other. And I think that's crucial when considering how to set up a mentor relationship.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Yuliya.
I would say one of the ways, maybe I would add to Philippa's comment, when one of the ways how this power hierarchy enters the relationship would be an evaluation component. And I would suggest being very careful about building that in, so that mentor is not an additional pressure whose expectations we need to meet as mentees, but that it's, has been emphasized a few times, mutually productive relationship, and nobody is above and nobody is superior, nobody is inferior there, but there is a genuine exchange and genuine learning for both parts.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent. Thanks so much. Let's hear from Monica.
Again, it's hard to summarize, but I'll throw this out there as a sort of a concluding idea, a proposal to reword the mentor-mentee already suggests a hierarchy. So as soon as we talk about mentor-mentee, even if we try to take away the hierarchy or the power dynamic or call it lateral, it doesn't take away from the fact that I am either mentor or mentee. I can't be, so we need one word that designates the participant in this community of practice.
Right. So do you have a suggestion?
Well, I mean, the community of practice exists, and so we have membership, right? So community members, yeah, we are members and we work together. We help each other out. We exchange. We make each other think better. On remet des choses en question. So we dare to offer a view that questions our assumptions.
Right.
In the self-study methodology, we talk about that as being your critical friend. So there's a friendship part in that I have good intentions. I want to support you, but I am offering a critical perspective so that we may see what's happening.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And to me, you're next.
Thanks, Carole. So yeah, I mean, to summarize, I guess what we're hearing is that we really need to kind of blow up the traditional hierarchical model of the mentor-mentee relationship and think of it more as an equal or lateral relationship where everyone can learn. You could imagine a seasoned teacher with a new teacher, and the seasoned teacher, you know, giving information about the history, the institutional knowledge that they're passing on to the new teacher, how to behave with admin, how to talk to other teachers, how to talk to students, parents, that really important knowledge that you can't just get from a book. And then perhaps on the other end, the new teacher is telling the seasoned teacher about like new pedagogical ideas. You know, everybody's talking about translanguaging in my BEd program. What is that? Have you experienced that? Or here's some new technology and some new tools I'm using. So we can really see how it can be mutually beneficial, as we've discussed, and really like giving teachers the autonomy to develop their own learning, forming relationships and bonds. We talked mostly about teacher to teacher, but I see Diane's comment here about forming bonds and relationships with parents as well. So if we really adopt this idea of community of practice, like the mentorship can be multilateral, like coming from other teachers, coming from parents, you know, parents who are on the parent council can talk with teachers and see how they can support teachers in their new endeavors in their classrooms, for example. So I think that's kind of the main idea I'm taking away from this discussion, is trying to think of like, what is mentorship? Who can do it? What direction does it go in? What are the goals of mentorship? And kind of talking together as a community to make sure we're all on the same page about that.
Okay, good, thank you. Just on behalf of Monique, who says this has been so refreshing. Thanks to all of you for your amazing insights. So on that note, I would like to thank our panelists once more, and especially thank our participants, because without you, we would not have a need for a panel discussion. And thanks for participating.